Good morning. Can you guys hear me? Sorry for the late. Sorry for the late start. Just give us a couple more minutes. There's a lot of rain on the south side and traffic's a bummer right now. So give us 2 more minutes and we'll get started. Okay, Sean, are we ready? Good morning. Okay. You guys ready? We got a big day. Are you ready now?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Big day today. Thank you for attending this. This is going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be worth it. We'll go ahead and just jump into the 2 normal board meetings. I'll call them or refer to them. So the August board meetings for 1 blended. Then we'll take a little break and get into the retreat, which is the meat of the day, if you will. And I'll set the stage for the retreat at that time. So let's just focus on these 2 board meetings right now. And then we'll pivot over to the retreat. So let's call to order the Board of Education for ethics. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Here.
Emily Beltran-Nunez. Ginger Casper.
Present.
Roy Bonner McKinley.
Present.
Catherine Stina.
Present.
John Payton.
Present.
Okay, let's get into the presentations. And first on the list, Superintendent.
As Sean is pulling up the superintendent presentation for our one-on-one school, I want to tell you all that we are very hard at work right now preparing for back to school. We met yesterday with our executive team, and I can assure you that everybody is working diligently to make sure that we are ready for students to begin right after Labor Day. So, without further ado, here's our superintendent's report. Always want to give the board an update and be completely transparent with regards to where we are from an enrollment standpoint. What I would tell you all is that we are experiencing a bit of a surge in enrollment, which is not unexpected. It's very typical this time of the year as brick and mortar schools go back to school. Parents are forced to make a decision on where they would like their child educated, and so a lot of parents will wait until the last minute to make that decision, weighing their options. And so I want to give the board an update. Here's where we're at right now. We currently sit in our one-on-one school at 21,619 students. That is down from where we were last year at this time, which was 27,451 students. And we knew that we were going to experience some attrition from the bump that we received from students and families that chose Epic Charter Schools this past year for COVID-related reasons. And so what we were experiencing right now, I mentioned this to Paul, was I feel like we're experiencing a market correction where families that chose us just for a one-year solution are now pivoting back to their local brick and mortar school or to homeschool or their school of choice. And so right now we are experiencing an influx of students, but we are also seeing some attrition as well. And so I look for that to calm down here in the next couple of days, because most public schools that are traditional brick and mortar schools in the state of Oklahoma will be starting this week if they haven't already started. And so what we'll see is the number of withdrawals beginning to decrease, but the number of our students that are coming to Epic, the number of applications will continue really through September. And so just wanted to give everybody an update. We're at currently at 24.5 to 1 in terms of our ratio. So that's the number of students on each teacher's roster on average, which is very, very healthy for us as an organization. I feel very good about where we're at. And so we'll move on.
Can you go back?
Yes, sir.
Okay, a couple questions.
Sure.
If we could just step back and talk about both schools together, maybe in this appropriate time, just what's the school's estimate on the first day of school? What do you think enrollment's going to be, and how does that compare to last year? So
I think we'll be just under 40,000 students between the two schools combined. And that puts us about, I'd say 10,000 students below where we were. But as I mentioned, I do think enrollments will continue through the month of September. So what is just under 40,000 could land somewhere between 40 and 50,000 students.
Yeah, okay, so first does me the next question is peaks sometime in September, October, is that usually where?
Historically, that's what we've seen, is the end of September.
And last year we peaked close to 60,000, is that right?
No, we exceeded that. It was actually over 61,000 students between the two schools last year.
And this year you think we could peak up to 45?
Yeah, I definitely think 45 is very attainable, and if we see a surge, which that's the variable, Paul, that we don't control, is depending on infection rates, depending on mask mandates, and all the things that are going on, we could see something above 45,000.
Well, the numbers are adding up, because I think what we had talked about back in May is that we doubled because of the pandemic. We went from 30 to 60, right? Those are the right numbers. And we felt like half that double was because of people just have no option because of the pandemic. And so we end up about 45,000, and that math works out to some extent.
Correct.
If we ended up at 40,000, what do you think our teacher ratio is going to be?
Yeah, I look for it to increase slightly if we continue to enroll more students, because obviously we're not hiring more teachers, so we're settling in.
24.5 to 1 is the current teacher to student ratio, and you don't have teachers in the pipeline to hire?
Oh, we have teachers. Yeah, we definitely have teachers in the pipeline that we can hire, but in terms of teachers that have been onboarded and are receiving professional development and are prepared to start the school year, this is where we currently sit.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Wanted to give you all, each month I try to show a face behind our school and remind everybody of who we're advocating for on a monthly basis. And so received this email with these pictures. So this is Amber Park's class. They had an epic summer celebration. And she mentioned at the end of the school year, they met at a splash pad here not too far from Oklahoma City. But this is an opportunity, and this is something that we're hoping as things normalize in our world and certainly in our state, we were going to have more opportunities for families to connect with other families. And that's something, Paul, I know that you're passionate about is making sure that our families are connecting with one another and connecting with their teacher, not just over Zoom and over virtual, even though we are a virtual school, but having that blended or face-to-face component is critical as well. And this is just one example of EPIC students getting together with their teacher and EPIC families meeting other EPIC families in their local area.
Good start.
Yeah. Also want to let you all know and update the group on EPIC One, a project of our communication and community team. EPIC staff has created an intranet, and it is up and running. So basically what we're doing is we're eliminating the need for apps and communication, this endless stream of emails between staff from different departments. And so anyway, it's about direct communication, collaboration, asking questions, but having a centralized location or depository for critical information that they need to know. So the intranet is up and running, and we are very excited about that as well. Wanted to spotlight Grace Kopecki. This summer, Grace joined the elite group, 261 young artists from every corner of the state as they develop their individual talents at the Oklahoma Summer Arts Institute at Quartz Mountain. Only a few dozen student artists are admitted each year in their respective categories, and it's on a competitive basis. And if you look around this room, board members, you can see we are hanging student art. So the art that you see hanging on our walls, and as you walk through the 50 Pen in our central office location, you will see artwork that was created by EPIC students. And it's not just high school age students, it's middle school students, it's elementary students, but they have helped bring our central office to life. So Grace is just one of the very talented students that we have at EPIC Charter Schools. I want to give everybody an update on the start of school. We're looking at September the 7th. Parents and guardians will be getting an EPIC orientation packet, which will include parent portal information, a school calendar, important contacts, expectations, and a preview of what we're calling EPIC Up, which is our attempt to take another step from academics, to financials, to governance. In all facets, we want to EPIC Up to level up. So we're going to use a gaming theme. So if you talk to kids nowadays in this new generation, they know what leveling up means in terms of gaming. So we're going to tap into that so that we can create a consistent theme. Teachers are going to be reaching out to families. That's occurring right now.
Are we going to hear more about EPIC Up
Absolutely.
in this meeting?
Yes, absolutely. And teachers are reaching out right now to families to schedule ILP meetings. The ILP is the Individualized Learning Plan meeting, where the teacher will sit down with the parent and then also with the child to determine what is their core curriculum or digital textbook that they'll be using throughout the year, any supplementals that they would like to order, and then also do they have technology needs, whether that's a laptop, a Wi-Fi, an iPad. So those meetings are occurring right now as we prepare for back to school. Also wanted to let you know that we're unveiling a mobile app, so that'll be for everybody that's affiliated with EPIC. So the idea is to simplify, and we do that by creating a mobile app that our families can tap into that will give them access to all things EPIC. Launching EPIC Up.
Is that app already running?
So it is now available in the Apple Store, yes,
Okay.
and available for download.
As well.
Say again?
It's available via Android too.
Yes,
It's
and
an
it's
app.
also,
What's it called? What's the app called?
yeah, that's,
EPIC Charter Schools.
And it's for parents?
It's for anybody.
yes, staff, students, parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're excited about that.
Board members?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, board members too.
Yeah,
Yes.
how do they figure it out? You are? Okay,
Yes.
I'll get with you on that break.
Yes, so it's something honestly we've been wanting to do for years. We just haven't had the opportunity to do it. Now we have, and so we're excited about the app that's coming out. Also, announcements, opportunities will be posted via social media, and so we're going to be communicating with our families, letting them know. The first couple weeks of school are always the most chaotic, hectic. Students will be utilizing school technology for the first time, logging into the curriculum, and so what we're preaching for our families is patience. And so wanted to give everybody an update on that. Also,
Can you go back?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. What does the school need to get off on a fabulous first 2 weeks? Where Bart and team like, you know what? Given all the challenges we had, that's probably the best school opening we've had.
Yeah, so to me, right now what we're doing, Paul, is we're recalibrating our staff based on need. And our number one priority right now is getting as many students as possible set up to start learning on the first day. And it's challenging because we have, I mentioned to you, on average, we're having 300 to 400 applications per day. So we'll have students all the way up to the first day of school, 300 to 400 on average, that are still enrolling. And so there's a process to get those students set up, and it's challenging because if you're not on this end of it, you don't understand. You think, well, I just enrolled my kid on Friday, I expect they'll be ready to learn on Monday when school starts. And it doesn't work that way because obviously we have to make sure the curriculum's set up, the schedule is ready to go, the technology has been ordered. So for us right now, what we're doing is we're recalibrating and funneling our staff to the high need areas, particularly with regards to operations, to make sure that we have as many students set up on the first day as we possibly can.
Yeah, but what help do you need from the board?
I think probably what would be helpful for us is for you to make sure two things. One, that you are in tune with what's going on in the community, whether that's through social media, whether that's through people that you know are enrolled at Epic, to help us understand where are the pain points that families, parents, students are communicating to you all. Helping us to understand what those are will help us to funnel those resources. And then I think the second thing is accountability. I think, you know, when we circle back in 30 days or whenever our next board meeting is, making sure that you ask the question, how many students are still remaining to be set up? I think that would be helpful because that sets the tone for everybody you see in this room that we've got work to do. And we can't have students learning if they're not set up. And so that to me, those two things, Paul, would probably be what the board can do to help us.
Well, why don't we all take the action to reach out within our community, and I hope we've already done this, or maybe not, but let me rephrase this. Reach out within your communities, each board member, and tell folks that you'd be super interested in hearing how the school is started and being pursued if you haven't already done that. And then feedback can go into me and Bart.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, and the feedback can be painful sometimes, especially this time of the year and this season. But the truth of the matter is, it's an opportunity for growth. And if people aren't communicating with us, it's hard to pinpoint where those needs are and those pain points are. But that is the overarching number one goal coming out of this board retreat and this board meeting today, is to get students set up and ready to learn. I wanted to mention to you Epic Cares, a new initiative from our Communications Community Department to build community across the state. Epic Cares is a volunteer event. We already had one at Will Rogers Museum with Wiley Post on August the 14th, and had about 1,500 attendees from the statewide community that attended. We had Epic volunteers parked cars, supervised kids' fun area, and helped with the airplane safety. We've got another event coming up on September the 25th. In Tulsa, it's the St. Jude Walk Run, and we will be surveying leadership and organizations, causes, events in their community for which we can provide volunteers. We want to benefit as many communities as possible, and Paul, I know you and I have had multiple conversations about being more active in the community and letting our families have an opportunity to interface with us, doing things other than just schoolwork. And so this is something that is going to be a priority for us. I know going into this retreat, and I'm confident coming out of this retreat, this is something that is going to, we want to take another step as an organization to be more involved in the community than we have been.
Yeah. Wow. This is a pleasant surprise. So I think community service is something that should be at the center of our organization and what we do. I think it's a way for us to build community with ourselves. So I love this. We could talk about this a lot, but we'll keep going.
Okay. Paul, that's my superintendent's report for the one-on-one charter.
Awesome. Any questions for Bart? Okay. Janice.
Good morning.
Good morning. So Janice is going to give us a financial and learning fund update.
Yes. So this morning's financial review for Epic One-on-One, just a couple of updates from the finance department in general. Our FY21 financial data. Do I start over? Good morning again. Epic One-on-One financial report, some updates from the finance team. Our FY21 financial data, or OCAS data, was uploaded to the State Department of Education on Saturday, July 31st, which was ahead of our August 1st due date. No errors, and we're working with them on their review now, which is very exciting. The first payroll of FY22 was completed successfully following the payroll implementation plan, which was a very, very big deal. We're very thankful for our payroll team for that. And then we are changing the form and the content of your monthly financial reports for the district. So in your packet in the Dropbox, you'll see the first example of that. It has a balance sheet and an income statement. It looks more like what you would see in a regular company's portfolio or other school districts' financial reports. It's a little bit different. I think it's easier to follow, shows you the health of the district. So we're resetting the timing for financial reports. On our prior months, since I've been here and before I was even here, we historically had 10 to 15 days from the end of the month to get the financial report together. And that's barely enough time to get the bank statements in and get the bank accounts reconciled. So we're going to align our timing with other school districts in the state, and we're going to delay that report till the next month. So next month I will be presenting the financial statements for July. I've been finding what's happening is they're being presented on the 10th business day or the like, and then after that there are adjustments. And so the final reports are not being presented, and I don't like that practice. I would rather present you the final solid, there are no more corrections reports every month. Gives us also a little bit more time since the reports are getting more complex to do the analysis we need to do on our budget, on the learning fund, et cetera, et cetera. So next month you'll see a more substantial report than even you received this month. But we went ahead and redid June reports with the final numbers that we reported to the State Department with all the adjustments and things that we found on reconciliations and presented those to you in the financial package today. Here's the update from that. It's in your packet. Yes.
Sorry. Can you help me understand? And it's the same at the other school I'm involved at, Academy of Seminole.
Yes.
But I've never asked this question there. But why does it take so much longer for a school to close its books than a typical business is like 6 or 7 days?
There's a lot to do and a lot to close, and we're evaluating every piece of coding. We finish payroll on the last day of the month. We wait for those bank statements to come in. Our internal audit team is working through the bank statements. We're working through all the OCAS data, getting the budget analysis done. Sometimes in doing that with the School District Budget Act, I'll be evaluating whether or not we need to tweak our budget, and it's just not possible to do all that in 10 business days. It's just, there's a lot that happens in order to make sure that you have everything you need. The learning fund reports that are coming in take a long time to analyze. I'm still not even familiar with them because it's new software, it's new practices, et cetera, et cetera. So I did it this way to Edmond also.
How different are the reports that we're getting? Because I think what you just said is that we've been getting financial reports as a board that aren't complete.
They're complete in that they satisfy statute and requirements, but I don't believe that they give you a full picture of what's happening with the financial situation in the school district. They don't have a budget comparison to actual expenses and revenue to date. They were a reconciliation of the bank accounts to our accounting software, and it showed you how much money had been spent and how much money was left in the bank.
No, I'm trying to understand now that.
And that's all that they showed.
I'm trying to understand the 10 to 15 business days. So in the past, you would be presenting July here, right?
Correct.
And what I hear you saying, I think what I hear you saying is it's too early to present July.
That's correct.
Normally, you would be presenting July.
To present it well, I could present you the bank account balance because that's all you were really getting before.
Okay.
But to present a full analysis of budget versus actuals, where we are with our budget, what needs to be updated, where we are with learning fund orders, comparing all of our expenses and all of that.
Well, I want to challenge you on not delaying information because we're, good, strong financial governance is timely financial data. And so I think we're going the wrong way on this. So let's maybe talk offline about, is there ways to get what we both want?
Okay.
But thank you, appreciate that.
But is this typical, Jenny, the
Yes.
normal?
Yes.
Normal public schools, this is a typical process.
Correct. That's correct.
Well, luckily, we're not a typical school, so that's good.
I just want to give you correct and informative financial data, and with the deadline, I would be limited, the current deadline, the prior deadline, I would be limited in my ability to provide you all of that information. You would get a snippet of information that's correct, and I would be reluctant to report things that I couldn't verify in the time frame. So that's the catch-22 for me.
Okay, this is a pretty big decision. I think the board should be counseled on this a little bit more, so we'll just take this offline.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I did want to point out one thing, if you don't mind going back real quick, Janice, for the benefit of the boards. I'm not sure if everybody totally understands this, and I'm going to say this real quickly, and I'm going to let you elaborate on it. That first bullet up there, I want to highlight that and draw your attention to it, board members. One, to throw a little love to Janice and her team, because this is a significant accomplishment. But really, if you see how she's worded this, EPIC's August 1st due date, I believe that EPIC is the only school district in the state of Oklahoma that has and was required through mutual relations and working with the State Department of Education to turn in the OCAS data by the August 1st deadline, as also one of the largest, if not the largest, financial school system in the state. So did I say that correctly, Janice?
Yes.
And then you want to elaborate on that? So I do want you all to understand that this is something that we are doing that is unique through our partnership and agreements and working with the State Department of Education. So it is a truly significant achievement.
Thank you. Yes, the statute deadline is September 1st. So EPIC has an August 1st deadline. So I'm not going to read through these slides because all this information is in your packet, but just an overview. The first item in the financial packet is a balance sheet, which shows your cash balance and your fund balance and your outstanding warrants. The pledge report, which has never been reported before, shows the collateral pledged for all of our cash in the bank, which is required by statute. So that report is a new addition to your packet. Then there's an income statement that shows revenues and expenditures by category, including the percentage on instructional costs, which is a really important number that we're looking at regularly. And so that's a new report that you haven't been receiving in the past.
This is incredible. You go back.
Yes.
You're flying.
I'm sorry, you told me 3 to 5 minutes and I'm at like 7.
Well, I'm dumb. I'm dumb sometimes. Okay, Janice?
No, I didn't. I don't think that's good.
2 days ago, Paul was not thinking. Can you go back one?
Yes.
I love this. I just flipped through the financials. I'm in love. So
Good. But
excellent.
it takes me more time.
I understand, and I hate that I'm so stubborn about stuff. I really do, but I promise, I bet you and I in 5 minutes can get us both what we want without getting more work from you. I promise. Will you trust me on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So I think it's just I think we need a snapshot maybe, and then you'll present to us down the road. But we can talk about it offline. This though. I might need to spend more time on this in between board meetings, but this is a good start. I don't know, John, I know this is your first time seeing it too, but.
Awesome.
I'm impressed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, can you go to the income statement then?
Yes.
So this is
So in the,
for,
sorry.
this is for,
For the end of last year,
Okay.
June 30th, 2021.
all right,
So the whole year in a snapshot. And in the Dropbox, you'll see all the income by the source, so local, intermediate, state, federal, other, and then you'll see the expenditures by the function, which is how we report it to the State Department. And it mirrors how our how our expenditures are reported by function on the transparency website. So this is how our expenditures are reported every year by the State Department on their website. So now our financials are mirroring their financials. And we didn't have this before, so this is all new.
and then is it fair to say 73% is classroom?
It's instruction, so anything that we can code in the 1,000 level, so it has to be directly related to instructing students. So it's not principals, it's not my salary, it's not supplies that are related to running the school. It's directly in the classroom or in written instruction. In our case, it's virtual. So
Part of
software, curriculum, etc.
is percent, I've always assumed and used that percent of dollars spent in the classroom as a good barometer of how we're doing. Is that something you guys agree with that? We've never had that discussion, Bert.
Yes, sir. And I think, and Janice, please correct me if I'm wrong, but 73.26% is higher than the state average. What is the state average?
Oh,
It's in the high,
59.
yeah, it's in the high 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're funneling more dollars to students than most public schools in the state of Oklahoma.
So, okay, what should that number be? You don't have to answer that now.
My budget for FY22 goal, I think, was 74 or 75, depending on which district you're looking at. So I'm budgeting to try to increase that, which is a high goal.
What's our dream, though? I guess maybe I'm in aspiration mindset right now.
It's hard for me to imagine higher than 75%. Because as we grow, I mean, one of the ways we save money on the other 25% is having a leaner administrative staff.
Fair.
I'm doing financial statements for 2 school districts, but it's one salary, for example, one total salary when you add those 2 salaries together. So there are a lot of ways where we've streamlined the expenditures for those things. I also think that having 73.26% in our instructional is comparing it to brick and mortar other school districts is also a little bit apples and oranges because they also have a building fund and a bond fund. So there are a lot of expenses in our general fund that I can't funnel out to the building fund or the bond fund. They have to come out of that 25% because they're not instruction, electricity, for example. So there are a lot of reasons why that 73% for us is actually much higher. If you were to pull out all those other expenses that I could have put in the building fund or the bond fund, it would be much higher. So
One other point to mention, Paul, is when you're looking at return on investment, whether that's the governor, whether that's the legislature, whether that's our state leaders, when you calculate direct instructional costs and then you look at that compared to the per pupil that we're bringing in terms of revenue, per pupil revenue, Epic is one of the lowest per pupil revenue schools in the entire state of Oklahoma. So that's a significant investment in our students.
I'm super proud of the number.
yes.
Obviously, outcomes have to come next.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. Learning Fund update. We are still seeing some prior year expenses coming through the email and sending over to our former management organization, EIS, so they're processing those. We have not yet received the final accounting for that, and the implication is they're still paying bills, so they can't finalize any of the data and send it over to us. We are still anticipating the return of any unspent funds from the prior year Learning Fund allocations per our agreement. Core curriculum and core technology orders went online and open for processing in mid-July in our new Spend Bridge program, which is a really, really big deal. I've got Chandler here today for the first time. Wave Chandler. Chandler is our Managing Director of Student Resources. He's in charge of the Learning Fund. And his team has done an incredible job building a new system, working with Roger's team, and then getting the ball rolling just as fast as possible so we could start the ILP process, because that core curriculum and core technology, that's part of their ILP process. So it was very, very exciting. We were originally thinking it might be August before we could open that. So to open it, I think it was July 12th? 9th, July 9th is when we opened that. And there was some pilot time. We had a few people work it, and then we worked out some bugs, and then we opened it teacher-wide. So that's very exciting. Concurrent enrollment is now being processed as necessary. The college enrollment time frame for concurrent enrollment classes was upon us, and so we pulled the trigger on that in order to accommodate students who desire to enroll in those college classes so that we could begin paying those fees on their behalf out of their Learning Fund allotment. Supplemental curriculum is set to be open for processing by September 1st. That's a really big deal because there's a lot of choices there. And so we're building that, and the teachers and their principals will be able to start selecting that for their students very soon. And then the last piece for the Learning Fund for us, there are two pieces that go together. The non-standard items, like when parents and students go to Amazon and pick supplies that they need that are out of a catalog, but they're not the standard school supply kit. And then services, lessons, gymnastics, band type lessons, flute, violin, etc. Those should be available in October and November. We're doing it as fast as we possibly can. There are thousands and thousands of things that have to be entered in order for that to happen. So it's all hands on deck for sure to get that up and running.
That's the one. You asked Bart for the board members to give you feedback on what they hear in the community. That's the one I've heard several times about, because it's turned into the Learning Fund's frozen, and we can't get the Learning Fund.
So when we withdrew our...
these are parents that I've heard from that have been frustrated with this part.
Yes, we're hearing it from parents and vendors also that are frustrated. It's just the unfortunate reality of switching from one software platform to another software platform. There's not a software platform you can go buy on a shelf for this product. So building this has been substantial.
What could we do? Is it a matter of if you had 20 more people, you could get this done?
No, it's a matter of the platform, the infrastructure that SpinBridge is building for us is still limited. So we're expanding it as fast as we possibly can to make sure that it can accommodate what we need to accommodate. And then we're building the catalogs at the same time. So we sure hope we can get it done as soon as possible. Chandler and I are talking about it all the time. Roger's raising his hand.
I can speak to some of that SpinBridge in my presentation.
Do you want
What?
So Roger's saying he's going to speak on that in his presentation.
Well, can we do it now? That's all right.
Sure. Tag team.
You can stay up there with him.
Good morning. So SpinBridge,
You guys match, by the way. It's
very good. So SpinBridge, we are in talks with them and working through the initial rollout was fine, but as we've added more data into the mix, then we've been seeing performance issues. And I had a call with Tom Jackson, who is vice president of the company, yesterday. My team's to be talking with him today. There was a change made last night that I conferred with Chandler. So we cut a response time on the refresh of the screens. It was 40 seconds. It was 4 minutes, which is totally unacceptable. They got that to 40 seconds. As of last night, they did some database work that got down to 30 seconds. They also have a coder that's looking at a change. So that's a couple of things we're looking at that will help that team be able to process orders faster. We're also looking at a one-time script that will do some auto approval of orders that are sitting out there that we can make with confidence that instead of a human having to go through and click, we can automate that. So we think we can probably process another 10 or 11,000 core orders immediately. And again, the team is checking with him today. I think there's a meeting at 3, but I asked him to get with Tom this morning to see what their decision, when they can get that rolled out. The hope is that they'll have that by Friday. And so every kid that has ordered a core on their IOP, that will be processed, which kind of pushes the whole piece of getting a kid set up in his digital core, push that down the line. Because it's a process. It starts at the IOP, then the Learning Fund, then the counselors, so it's definitely a process. So we're looking at that. So, but
just real quick, are you critical path or is Janice? You are. Chandler is.
Well, I am for technology. I mean,
So if you got the technology ready today, could the learning fund be ready?
Learning Fund is working. They're working today. They're just not working as quickly as probably they should be because the software is kind of hanging them up.
I'm talking about the non-standard items, though. How do we get that going?
Well, I mean, the critical path is core and tech. I mean, that's our prime concern. Without that, a kid can't start school. So that's front and center. That's critical path 1.0. The critical path 2.0 is then the other things, the activities, and some of those extraneous things that parents order with their money. But to us, if a kid can't get his core and he can't get his hardware, he can't start school, and that's the main thing that we're focusing on. I think right now, between the software and getting Amazon catalog set up, I think the go date was start of November.
Let me just step back and tell you where I'm going with all this.
Okay.
I think it was May board meeting. We talked about not having any level. I mean, we were put in this situation. Let's first acknowledge that this is a crappy situation that we've been put in. So let me just first acknowledge that. And you guys have done an amazing job of getting this far. And I completely agree with your priorities, 100%. I also think it's the board job, though, to make sure that, we had said in May that our hope and our aspiration was that the first day of school, there wouldn't be any drop off in service, level of service. And so have we, A, do we consider this a drop off in service? And B, are we okay with that? Is that true? Yes? Or is it, yes, it's a drop off in service, and B, we don't think there's anything we can do about it?
Is that a question to me or?
I don't know.
I'll take a shot at it.
Whoever wants to answer.
I'll take my shot at it. I mean, for kids to learn, for kids, for what we are, our primary focus is to educate kids, get them ready for their state tests, get them ready for the ACT so that they can graduate and move on. It's the core and the hardware. Those are the essential tools. The other stuff, even though it's important, to me, it's secondary in nature. And
I'm not disagreeing with that.
I guess what I'm saying is that we are still a little bit struggling to get those main components done. Like I just said, we're having meetings now to try to get that piece done. If we can get past that, well then I think we, and there are other issues with SpinBridge that we're dealing with as well. That's just
probably a poor analogy, but I think what you're saying is, hey, we're almost stabilized the heart, so we can stitch up the leg. Once we get to
well,
this,
when I spoke to Bob Summers had asked me, where are you? And I said, well, my analogy would be, we're building a house with the foundation, we got a black in, we have a roof, we may have running water, we have no beds, we have no window coverings. We're secure, we have a shelter, we can get business done, but the amenities are not there. They're coming, but it's just going to take time to develop that. Again, the Learning Fund was built from the prior software was built over a series of years. This is years. This company we've been dealing with a matter of weeks. So I mean, I think where we've come is really probably exceeds where I thought we would be. In May, I'd have never thought we would have been where we are now. Yeah, it's probably a drop off in services, but I mean, I don't know that we can do anything more than what we are. And I don't want to overpromise.
Well, you do that. You guys spend some time thinking about if resources weren't an issue, what could we do to make sure there's not, to minimize the drop off of level of service? Okay, is that a fair question?
Sure.
You had $10 million more dollars.
We looked at that. Yeah, it all funnels back to the company that's writing the software.
Okay, so there's nothing we can give them. We couldn't give them $1 million and they could throw more people at it.
Well, I can ask. I mean, sure. I mean, I guess money can buy anything. Sure, we can. They're already putting additional resources on where we are now, but we can always ask. Absolutely.
I mean, you guys have saved $40 million, and I'm not asking you to go spend it. Just spend it.
The other thing, back to my house analogy, is that when things are moving down a path, certain things can be done in parallel, certain things can't. Certain things have to kind of be linear, and you can only get so much effort on this path that things have to kind of fall in place. So that, I mean, in software, that's kind of the way it is. If we have other ancillary pieces, that would, then you're right. We could probably add more developers and could be doing things simultaneously or parallel across the board. A lot of this is more linear in fashion. But I can certainly ask.
I think we should do that today.
I will do that when I sit down. I will ask Tom what we can do. Sure.
All right. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Janice. Appreciate that. Let us interrupt your presentation.
I have more learning fund information for you. So we are up to 828 purchase orders since July 1. So that's the initial 6 weeks because that goes through August 13th. We have $16 million in purchase orders for Epic One-on-One's Learning Fund, and payments issued to date is $1.3 million. So here's an example of up-to-date data that's not in my financials that you were talking about earlier. There is a detailed listing of all Learning Fund purchase orders and payments in your board packet. It's pages and pages and pages long. It's every single vendor. So if you have a question about any of that, you can holler at me anytime. Orders processed to date, I'm going to go through this rather quickly. Currently, SpendBridge is I was not able to pull down the data per district, so I just want to make sure that everyone understands that this slide is for both districts combined because SpendBridge is one big software platform. We will have the ability to report district by district, but we're just not there yet, and that is not the highest priority. Getting kids ready for the first day of school is the highest priority. So we've processed 11,036 technology orders to date, and the total charge to student accounts for those orders is $2.5 million. Laptops, MiFi devices, calculators, and almost all of these tech items were in inventory and paid for in a prior year. Curriculum orders approved to date, 8,183. The charge to student accounts was $648,000. And those are core curriculum licenses with a per student cost, and we purchased those core licenses in bulk. So like you'll see a PO for Edgenuity for a very large sum, and that's for all of the licenses for the district. And then annual fees processed to date, $8,295. The total charge for that is $414,000. And that fee covers all of the no-charge licenses that we pay for, but we don't charge the students. IXL, Freckle, Vocabulary, shipping, all the order support from our staff, and then the cost of the actual platform software is in the cost of running the Learning Fund. So that $50 fee that we like to talk about covers a whole lot more than $50 a kid. And as we go forward and we start really being able to analyze this data, I will be showing you exactly what we're paying for everything and exactly what is being charged to the balances so that you can see, and I think you'll be surprised, especially in that category, we're very much in the red. So there's a lot more expense there than we're actually charging into the child's allotment. Okay, a budget update. That's all I have for the Learning Fund, unless you have another question about the
Great update, thank you.
Okay, ESSER funds. ESSER 2 funding will be added to the budget for board approval at the September meeting, so you'll have a modified budget to approve.
Can you remind the board/me what
Sure.
ESSER is?
It's elementary and secondary schools emergency relief. So it's like CARES Act #2 and CARES Act #3, but they don't call it CARES anymore. So it's supplemental money for learning loss and COVID related items that need to happen in order to make sure school keeps going on and kids do not have any sort of learning loss during the pandemic. So that was awarded to us prior to, we talked about it last meeting. And then ESSER 3, the preliminary plan for ESSER 3 is posted on our website today. Yesterday, and that is per requirements. But we're not going to add that to our budget until we spend ESSER 2. ESSER 3 money goes through September 2024. So we're spending it in the order that it expires. So you'll see more information about ESSER 2 at the next board meeting. The preliminary department level budgets are going to be finalized after strategic planning because our conversations today will cost money. So in order to plan that, you'll see those hopefully reflected in those budgets. And then the July financial reports will include your first budget versus actuals at the department level. That's it, finally. 3 to 5 minutes. I did my best.
You spoke for 3 to 5 minutes. You did great. I spoke for 3 to 5 also. That's the problem.
As always, if you have any questions about anything in the presentation or in the Dropbox, I'm available anytime.
Yep. Excellent job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Paul, I want to make one mention of something she brought up in the Learning Fund that I think is significant.
Yeah.
We talked about when we moved our Learning Fund from where it was last year to the public side, the transparency that would be available to the public. And one of those slides in there broke down the specific costs to the students based on the curriculum. This is more of a spotlight than has ever been shown in the history of Edmond charter schools.
That is lost on me because, you know, I don't have that experience of the past 10 years of the learning fund being behind closed doors. So you're raising an incredible point.
One of the things that the state auditor and investigator brought up in her final report that she issued last October was 100% transparency. And so moving this learning fund to the public side, where the board, where our staff, where our parents, where the state, and anybody that's interested has the opportunity to see exactly to the penny what we are spending on a monthly basis is a significant step in the right direction towards transparency. So I just wanted to bring that point up to everybody.
I love it. We should celebrate that a little bit more somehow. You're right, but we will. Thank you for pointing out how important that moment was, because it was. Good job. Okay, up next. There you are.
I am. Okay, technology report. Gives a critical path to open school. It's listed out. I'll go to the next slide, which just shows that we check the boxes on these things. Enrollment's open, rolling well, teacher rostering is up. IOPs are in progress. Curriculum purchases for student hardware, that's rolling. It's limping along, but it's rolling. We've got the payroll report for Diana and Janice got payroll. They just got payroll, so evidence of that. The other part of the critical path, and this is not totally green, so these are close. Pre-K through 8 schedules automated. We're very close to this. High school schedules are in progress. The third bullet, sectioning for benchmarking tools, that's for testing. That's for Mastery Connect testing and STAR 360. So we're there. That 75%, that's a big deal. We've been waiting for that to start running. Bots run that actually start putting students who the counselors have set up courses for, actually puts the kid in the core and sets them up to where they're ready to start school. So we had to get proof of concept that that's going to work. We have, I think there's one core left to go. I think it's Apex. And once that happens, the vehicle for a kid, once a kid has gotten through the mill to actually do the load through Clever into the course to start school is a go. So we're, the SSS team, system support, is checking through those, but that looks very promising. Student attendance, there's a little bit of change there, but we've got to have a way of reporting student attendance and acting upon that. There's nothing in Power School like that. We handle attendance a little bit differently according to the law. So we're going to have a custom screen built. We're actually going to get Power School to handle that. We've got some hours with them that are unused we're going to use in that regard. And that last piece, the SIF compliance piece, that's the communications tool between Power School and the SDE, the WAVE, so that we can report kids to the state system, what our enrollment is, and whatnot, all the data that the state requires. That was plugged in or installed, or is to be installed today. And I think Devin Nutzman, our DBA, our database administrator, will be actually cranking that up on Monday. So we'll actually start transferring data across to the state at that point. So that's our critical path that we've been talking about since day one. Back to the foundational house, bare bones, no amenities. This is where we are. So I feel really good about where we are on this. We're almost totally green. So we then move on from there to what I would call the next critical path. So now we're trying to get a little more into the amenities, if you will, the next level. So these are the things that we're starting to work on. We've got a head jump on some of these items already.
What does this mean? Critical path 2.0.
Well, the critical path is what we were asked, or what I was asked to say. What does it take to start school? And Let me get back. How do I get back here?
Yeah, I get the first.
These are the things we had to have to start school.
Yeah.
So I figured you guys would want to know, so what's next? Basically, it's the what's next. What's the next critical things?
Okay, but sorry, my confusion was, I guess, on the quarter one plan. Is there a timeline on this?
They are on certain pieces. Like Learning Fund, we've talked about November 1 is the kill date on that one. Some of these, like state testing solution, for example, we don't state test until April. But however, you got to have everything up and rolling probably in January. We're looking, all of these things, we've actually started solutions on these. They'll roll out as we get to them. I don't really have a kill date on all of these. Some of these are going to have to be sooner than not. RTI, that's a solution we're actually starting tomorrow with an item with Power School called special programs that we're implementing to get that going. It's in the slide. Learning Fund, we talked about that. Students' performance reporting, that's a module called Performance Matters. We already are dealing with that. We're in training and looking at that. Devin Nutzman, Michael Forey's team, data analysts are dealing with that as well. And in state testing, the state testing group and myself have been looking at some options of how to use Power School, their student scheduling, like course scheduling. We think we can use that and just kind of morph that in a way that we can actually handle our state testing schedule, which is a big deal. That number one is probably the biggest piece that we don't have an answer for now. The thought is that we'll be able to use Power School to get us through where we need for this year, and then maybe reevaluate over the summer if this is going to truly cover all of our bases or not. And that's pretty much, you asked for a quick one, so I gave you a quick one. So I figured you'd have a lot of questions.
Change management plan, we talked about that last time. That's maybe not a question for you, more of Shelley and John and Bart, but are we looking at that? Yeah. I think it would be helpful going back to the Learning Fund. Maybe I can give an idea here, or we can talk about this. Hopefully we have somewhere where we can create quickly a compare and contrast of the parent's experience of opening school, because it sounds like how they're opening school, if they've been a parent here for 6 years, or a student, well, I guess, and a student. Then you're accustomed to a certain way for school working. I think it would be good if we had on paper how it's going to be different and what we're doing to make sure parents understand how it's going to be different. I don't think we've done that. Okay. All right, well, we take that action, Bart. I think that's an action for you. And I think that's across the board on everything, not just you, not just the Learning Fund, but on everything. Thanks to you and your team. I know how hard you guys are working. I really do.
It's going really well.
Your reward will be in heaven, I promise. Okay?
It's just the team. They're doing a great job. And the rest of there's folks in here that are kicking it too. They're along, the Learning Fund, Chandler and Mike Forey and Chad Demick, those different teams. GSM team, SSS team, James Magna, Chandler with Learning Fund, Michelle Valdez and Admissions. All of those teams are part of this effort to get these kids started and get going. So,
okay, thank you, Rob.
All right, thank you.
Great work.
All right, legal status update, Mr. Hickman.
Yes, sir. I want to update the board on two the current pending lawsuits that we discussed before. First one is the state auditor and inspector lawsuit against Epic U Services, the former management company. As you may remember, we did file a motion to intervene into that case. In the last week or so, we had that hearing. We faced objections from both the state auditor and inspector's office and Epic U Services, and the end result was that the court denied our request. So we were not admitted or allowed to intervene and become a party in that lawsuit, and so we will not be receiving those Learning Fund records that were the subject of that case.
They have a rationale.
The court's rationale primarily was that the case right now is a motion to compel on an administrative subpoena issued by the State Auditor Inspector's Office to EYS, and that because of the limited scope of the case. Didn't think that we had standing or we should be allowed to intervene, essentially, but noted that if the scope of the case or the issues in the case were to change, that she would maybe reconsider our request. And then the second case is the Oklahoma Lodge lawsuit over the open records issue. We are nearing completion of the review. It's approximately 18 to 20,000 actual pages of documentation. So I think before I give it to you in the context of the number of emails, because that's what the request was emails, but actual pieces of paper, individual pieces of paper, it's about 6 banker boxes full, and so it's about 18 to 20,000 sheets of records. We're down to probably the last 3,000-4,000 that we're finishing the review of. I've reached out to their lawyer to discuss, potentially trying to work out a resolution of the case, and they are not, at this point, indicate that they're still not willing to pay any fee at all. But we're not at a point. We'll continue the discussions and continue the review, and hope to have a proposal to bring to you maybe in September to try to resolve the case in total.
Let's get it resolved in September. Let's make that a goal. Get this behind us. Move on. Okay. And on the state auditor intervention, I don't know why they rejected it early. I mean, I know what they said, but personally, I'm not heartbroken over it. I mean, I think at the time we did it, our relationship with the state auditor was unknown at best, I would say. And now, I can update you guys on this later on in the meeting, but I think our relationship with the state auditor has improved drastically. It's less of an issue that we didn't win it. I mean, but the point is, we think there's a lot of money still left to be returned from the learning fund, and we want every penny, I think, on this board. And we're going to keep clawing back at it until we get it back. Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board before we move on? Okay, let's go to the consent.
Sorry. No, only one more thing maybe for the action that you're gonna take. It's to include like a time frame or something so that there are no false expectations for the parents, and they know that as soon as they enroll a child, it's not gonna happen as you were mentioning before, so that they have a time frame. That would be very.
Okay, we now proceed to the consent agenda. The consent items are routine in nature. They will be considered and voted on together as a group with one vote. However, any board member may ask about any item on the consent docket or ask to have any items removed from it for a separate vote. All right. Can we talk about Alliance Mental Health MOU number 7, please?
Good morning. I'm Mark Everhart, Assistant Superintendent over Special Services. How you guys doing?
Good.
What questions do you have?
Number 7 is we're consideration and possible action to approve MOU with Alliance Mental Health. Can you talk about that? Just that relationship and why it benefits EPIC students?
Sure, yeah. Alliance Mental Health, formerly known as Youth Care Oklahoma, is an agency that provides counseling and other psychiatric medical services to our students. We've partnered with them since 2016. What's unique about our relationship is that they have the capacity, number one, to serve the entire state because of our enrollment. And also, I think we're the only school, even institutions of higher ed, that offer 24/7 access to those counseling services and in person at their sites if that's requested as well.
Okay.
So we've been pretty pleased with
What kind of activity are we seeing from our families?
Last year, including services with our IEP students, about 1,500 students and families were served.
What do you What should be our goal?
That's a good question.
It seems low to me. Is that low? 50,000 kids? That's 2%?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's not. I have no idea. Maybe that's a question.
Yeah, it's certainly something, we could dive into a little more. And
Are you happy with, obviously you're happy
Yeah.
with their services?
Yeah.
I mean, I love the potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think right now, and we're going to talk about this when we retreat, I think the more we can help families, especially in this arena, the better. So
Sure. And maybe more outreach and, making sure our teachers know about the referral process and making that information available.
every parent or guardian of the 45,000 students are going to should know about these programs for sure.
Is it also available for the faculty, staff, teachers?
We have an EAP.
I was just going to mention, ironically, we are doing a needs assessment and sending out a survey to our families tomorrow so that we have an idea of how many of our families would actually like to have the services.
Okay.
I was answering Dr. Stevens' question, sorry. We have an EAP with a chance to change for all of our employees, and they have up to 6 sessions with them for them or anyone in their household.
Okay.
And we have about a 15% utilization rate on that, which they say is very high for an employee.
That's a good number. I mean, it's not surprising given the year we went through. I'm surprised it's not 100, to be honest. Yeah, can we have it for board members?
I was going to add to that, trying to set a goal for usage for mental wellness services, and I say mental wellness because people still have a hang up about the term mental health. So you'd hope people would be healthy where you wouldn't need to use a lot of it, but you still have to do a lot of building just for people to open their mouth and feel comfortable saying that something's not right. In my own family, I've been recently impacted because we have guardianship of a 15-year-old niece who just spiraled. And so just things like that, it's really helping families get past the stigma. And the benefit is amazing. I actually recommend it for the school district I live in. They asked us how to use their ESSA funds. I'm like, you've got to put mental health counselors in school, not just the college one that's trying to make sure you graduate. And the other thing I was just going to add up quickly, it's amazing benefit because we were able to utilize positive changes for our niece, and they could not believe the insurance I had. My employer's insurance actually covers her being with positive changes, outpatient, 5 days a week at 100% with my deductible waived. You're like, that is absolutely unheard of. Most families come to us and they need it and then they can't afford it. Like they don't even have the benefit for the kid to even get started because they can't afford. I looked at my insurance and didn't know that every single week, $1,600 is being paid every time anybody of positive changes who's medical is talking to her. I didn't know it because I don't have to pay. So us having that at this school is absolutely amazing because she spiraled to the point where we need residential. And so I don't know what we could have done if we didn't even have the intensive outpatient to start. So I just wanted to add that. It's sad to try to set a high goal because you hope people aren't there, but the fact that we even have it in a school, mental health, and not just the guidance counseling.
And for students that are on student care, that's very limited as well on that. So to have this is excellent.
What action do we want to take off of this? It feels like maybe it's more we can talk about at the retreat as the theme. Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do. Any other questions on that consent? Anything we should be asking about on the consent? I think I've gone through all these with Bart.
Mr. Chairman, there's one thing I guess I maybe would like to highlight, something new that we are doing to promote transparency. Item number 6 is the charter school facility sites. This is something that we submit a list that's submitted annually. It's through Mr. Taylor's department and Brandon Webb and Michael, Flory, and many others that are involved in compiling that list. This is the list of locations that under the statewide virtual charter school board rules, you have to submit a list of where the teachers maybe are meeting to provide face-to-face instruction with our students, and that list has to be submitted and is approved through the State Department of Education and the State Virtual Charter School Board. That list has historically not been brought to this board for consideration approval, but we think it's best practice so that you guys have that list now. So if you're driving down the highway and you see an EPIC sign in front of a building, you know why it's there because it's on this list, and you now are aware of where those locations maybe are at, that our teachers maybe are conducting instruction with students. And so I just kind of wanted to highlight that, but there's some work that had to be done behind the scenes to get that all compiled and put together, and we think it's a best practice to bring that to you guys so you're just fully informed of it.
Excellent, thank you. I think that's the third time I've heard the word transparency, so it's just become part of our everyday language. I love it. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda unless there's any other questions?
I do have a question. I'm going to try to be quick because I see Carrie on the screen. The student handbook, I just clicked to that and noticed that we are now, it is possible to get an F. Is that what I'm understanding? Me personally, I think that's good because in brick and mortar, they don't give Fs. And I'm like, if you have a 0, you actually need to know that you have a 0. But parents can probably get very strange about this. A lot of people choose to do non-traditional schooling because they want to have happy vibes all the time. How are we communicating this so that people aren't caught off guard, where now if you allow your child not to work, they actually are going to have an F and it's going to show?
Yeah, basically we're waiting on board approval to send out any sort of communication, but absolutely we'll be communicating this. Really where this came to surface was the switch to Power School. Epicenter didn't allow teachers to get below a 60. Power School, it would have been a customization to make it to where teachers couldn't give below a 60. And we felt like, with our outcomes and things that need to get better, we need to hold students accountable, and we need to do a better job of that. So, yeah, we will communicate it to families as soon as it's board approved.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Kathleen Beltran, yes. Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Alana.
Yes.
Catherine Stevens.
Yes.
John Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to purchasing and general business. Before we get into number 9, we're going to introduce Carrie Irvin. You guys remember Carrie. She's the co-founder and CEO of Education Board Partners out of Washington, D.C. She has been the ringleader in getting this new independent board in place over the past several months. So you have another nominee for us to consider. Would you like to take us through that, please?
Thank you so much, Paul. I can hear myself talk there too. Oh, that's better. Hi, everyone. It's really great to see you over Zoom, and I'm really sad I'm not with you in person. I look forward to coming out there as soon as circumstances allow. As several of you know, I'm temporarily staying with my 80-year-old parents, as you can tell by all the photos of me over here from various stages of my childhood. So with that regard, it was unsafe for me to travel at this time, but I really appreciate coming today. I'm only going to take a moment of your time. I'm incredibly excited to have this opportunity to once again present a board candidate for the board's consideration. So I'm going to briefly share my screen. Oh, whoops, I can't share my screen. That's okay. I don't really need to. It's okay now?
Let's see here.
It's okay. I don't need to share my screen for this part. We can work on that later. As you all know, just as a quick reminder, my nonprofit, Education Board Partners, has the privilege and opportunity to work with this board to, among other things, help you independently recruit talented board members from the state of Oklahoma with relevant skills and experience to help govern this special and innovative organization. We've been working for about 6 months now, following a very structured process of recruiting according to a set of recruiting priorities tied to the mission of the organization. I'm very pleased to tell you tonight, this morning, that we have our 7th or 8th candidate to recommend to you, Renee Porter, who I believe is in the room with you. Renee brings extensive leadership and startup experience that I think would be a huge asset to this board. She was both the founding CEO of a high school and the founder and CEO of a community development organization. This combination of leadership and startup experience, some of which was in an education context, I think are so relevant for this organization that is in essence restarting up a school. So I'm really excited at that unique and deep background she brings. Prior to that, Renee brings over a decade private sector experience, including tech integration, marketing, and contracting. Again, all super relevant to the many items on the plate of this board going forward into a new school year. Prior to that, Renee did some stints in higher education, politics, and policymaking. Side note, an incredibly small world story. During the conversation in which I introduced myself to Renee, we discovered that we worked in the same office building in Arlington, Virginia in the mid-1990s. No joke. So we feel like we must have seen each other in the elevator many, many decades ago. So that was a coincidence in both of our early careers. Perhaps most importantly, Renee brings a really deep and demonstrated commitment to education, diversity, and family and parent choice. She's an active community volunteer in many causes, almost all of them child or student centered. As part of our interview process, in addition to me, Renee was also interviewed by 2 board members and by Superintendent Banfield. In conclusion, in presenting Renee Porter to you for consideration, I'd like to share with you one of Renee's favorite quotes, which I think sums up really nicely what I believe her approach to being a member of this governing board would be. John F. Kennedy Jr. quote, "Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other," unquote. And to me, that pretty much sums up a great philosophy about serving on the board of a school. Thank you so much, Paul and board members, for your consideration of Renee Porter this morning.
Okay. Well, I've known Renee for 5 years. When I looked at starting the Academy at Seminole, she was one of the first people that I was introduced to and sat down with for well over an hour. I don't know if she even remembers that, but I was new to town. And she gave me a lot of really great advice. And so I've always been a big fan of hers, and I'm just absolutely pleased that she's going to be considered for this volunteer position. So any questions for Renee? And Renee, would you please stand up so everybody can see you here? Sorry. Okay. Unless anybody objects, I would like to have a motion to nominate Renee Porter to the board of Epic One-on-One.
So moved.
Sorry. Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran Dominguez.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Alana Montgomery.
Yes.
Kevin Stina.
Yes.
John Taylor.
Yes.
Welcome. Of course I do. How are you? Bye. It's nice to see you. Nice to see you. Thanks. I'm so thrilled. Thanks.
All right. Well, welcome. You don't have to say anything, but you're more than welcome to if you can pass.
No, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to serve in another capacity to tens of thousands of kids across the state of Oklahoma. And so it's an honor to be here amongst this body and to be a member to take the school forward and to see what that path looks like. And as well, all of you make it happen. So thank you.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on to item number 10. Consideration and possible action to approve purchase orders through August 13th.
morning. Okay, this month we have issued 130 new purchase orders since the last board meeting, totaling a little over 13.8 million. You will see a summary of the purchase orders on the last page of your report that just subtotals it by departmental budget code. So of that 13.8, we set up 60 learning fund purchase orders this month that totaled a little over 9.6 million. 3 of those were for blanket purchase orders that totaled 7.2 million. That was for T-Mobile, Verizon, and UPS. A little over 1.1 million was for 5 of the 6 contracts that you approved at last month's board meeting, and those are for Curriculum, Waterford, Renaissance, Bright Thinker, Apex, and Edgenuity. Those are highlighted blue on your purchase order report. Another large one that we issued was our sponsorship purchase order, and that's 3.1 million, and that's something that we'll receive an invoice for due to a change in law this year. They used to subtract that from the monies that we received, but now they will invoice us for that.
Really? What are the payment terms?
We don't know yet. We haven't got our first invoice. But it helps our state aid kind of regular.
Interesting. That's a lot of money. Is that for 1 year or 10? I mean, what? It's 1 year. It's 30 teachers. 30. More than 30 teachers. Okay, thank you.
So we've always generated this purchase order report and purchase order number order, and what I was wondering if it would be easier for you to read if I pulled in the departmental budget code and sorted and summarized by that instead of just this listing of purchase orders.
Yes.
Like I remember.
100%.
Okay, so I will start doing that next month, and it'll just put like things together where you can kind of see where we're setting those up.
Who's managing the T-Mobile and Verizon accounts and the pricing and all that? Who does that? Is there any? Okay.
Any questions?
No. Good. Thank you. Any questions? You good? You good? Okay. Do you have a motion to approve item number 10?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Janet?
Paul Campbell,
Yes.
Kathleen Belchman Dominguez,
Yes.
Ginger Cassis,
Yes.
Rwanda Montgomery,
Yes.
Renee Porter, Catherine Messina, John Tate.
Yes.
Motion approved. Okay. Number 11. Consideration and possible action to approve MOU with Tulsa Tech Aerospace Academy. Justin?
Yes, this would be a partnership that would allow our juniors and seniors to apply and possibly be accepted to an aerospace academy program with Tulsa Tech. This program provides all the core curriculum plus this aerospace program. We would just still attach an EPIC teacher to the student. They would still be required to take tests and take benchmarks through us. So
is this A&P mechanic? Would that be part of the, do you know?
No.
No.
You're in your
sorry, I'm an aerospace guy. I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
I'm not certain.
All right.
I have a question. So, those who do not live in that Tulsa area, this would not really be accessible at all for them.
That's my understanding.
So we have nothing comparable for those that live on the other side of the state, so.
Yeah. This is a program specifically offered through Tulsa Tech.
I'm just curious, do we have student interest already, or?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome.
This idea, this program was presented based on student interest.
Well, I think we need a lot more things like this. So an A&P mechanic at high school, you can graduate with an A&P license, and you can get a $65,000 job out of that. and they're in high demand right now, so I'm glad I can see why this is wanted by students. Do we have a motion to approve the MOU with Tulsa Tech Aerospace Academy?
Make a motion.
Second.
Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Adelina Beltran,
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Wyline Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Abstain. Catherine Stino.
I agree.
John Taylor.
Yes.
Item number 12, consideration and possible action to improve agreement with Discovery Ed. Thank you for adding dollar amounts in the approximate of $166,000. So this is here because it's over 150.
Correct.
And you've used this before? Discovery Ed or just new?
This, we used it, a small portion of it last year. This is, we're wanting to add it as an enterprise-wide supplement to our core curriculums this year. So it was used as a pilot last year, and we would like to be able to offer it to 14,000 students this year.
Is the 166, that's not a per student, that's a flat?
Yeah, so basically if you take the 166,863 and divide it by 14,000, that's gonna get what the per student is.
So I got that, but do they charge us per student, do you know, or do they?
Yes, they charge us per license.
Okay, so if we have 55,000 kids, that's gonna go up to 500,000?
Yes.
Whatever.
Right.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve item number 12?
So moved.
Second? JP?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran, yes.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Wyline Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Abstain. Catherine Stino.
I agree.
John Taylor.
Yes.
Item number 13, Mastery Connect for instruction in the amount of $173,000.
So Mastery Connect is the program we utilize for formative assessments. So it is created by us in terms of the assessments. They're OAS aligned to Oklahoma academic standards. And these 25,800 licenses would allow us to give small formative assessments throughout the entire course of the year to all of our students in order to assess where they're at and target instruction accordingly.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we are actually going to leave that and go to performance matters, right? So Mastery Connect, we're still paying for it, but what's the transition?
And I would probably need to get with Roger a little bit more closely with that, but for this year, Mastery Connect is what we're going to utilize for our formatives, and then we'll transition, as we build Performance Matters this year, we'll likely transition to Performance Matters.
I must have misread that on the improvement plan.
Any other questions for Justin? Okay. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran, yes.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Wyline Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Abstain. Catherine Stino.
I agree.
John Taylor.
Yes.
All right, consideration and possible action to approve a lease agreement with Quest Church.
Yes, as you know, our one-on-one students, we obviously encourage and require face-to-face meetings with them. And this is one of the facilities that we are bringing forth. We've used this facility before, we're continuing to use them. But we did discover that this had not been brought to the board's attention before. So that's why this is not on the consent docket, it's on this docket for transparency reasons. So we're avoiding it. And, but anyway, we have a great deal with them. We've done our testing there. It's a nice large church facility. We have hundreds of parents and students that use this. But we were able to negotiate to our great facilities team led by Ryan Goschak. Instead of us paying an extra $21,000 when it comes to May and May for our testing, it was rolled into this contract. So it's kind of like a freebie for our testing. So we feel a little good about this lease. So we're asking for your approval.
Chair, if I can just interject real quick, just to kind of keep the board up to speed on some of the internal discussions that we have with the team. Just to elaborate on what Mr. Taylor said. So we've decided as a kind of an internal policy, if you will, that while the $150,000 is the threshold to bring contracts to you for your approval, that when we enter into new lease agreements like this agreement will be signed by your superintendent because of the dollar threshold. But out of transparency, we're going to bring those new agreements to you so you're aware of them. Because like my example before, you might be driving down the road someday in Norman, drive past this West Church and see an Epic sign and be like, I didn't know we had something there, and we don't want you to have that feeling. So we're going to bring, when we sign new agreements to lease facilities, which while there's a previous relationship and new documents going to be signed, that we bring that to you out of transparency, although it's under the dollar
I
threshold.
love it. I like it a lot, so thank you. Do you have, and if it's in here, I missed it, is there a map of Oklahoma and all our facilities on it?
Not in here, but we can get that for you.
I think it'd be good for the board to have, just with like a little key, like this is a BLC, this is the administrative, whatever they call it is.
No problem. Okay, thank you. And thank you for breakfast, by the way.
And also, maybe something that could be added on the map would be like, if we could see like in colors, like the amount of population, you know, kind of stuff, so we know how many people could be served at a specific area. It just, with colors, you know, we don't have to be so specific, but at least we know there is kind of like our.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We do have software. It's called a heat map that will identify specific areas throughout the state where our population is. So we can absolutely get you that information. Yep.
I know you have this part, but we probably should dust it off and get a 10-page PowerPoint overview of Epic. That would be in there, I would assume, like here's where we are geographically, here's who the students we serve, that kind of thing. That's good. I'd like to see that too, the heat map stuff, that's good.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve item number 14?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran.
Yes.
Dominguez. Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Roy Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Catherine Stina.
I approve.
John Tate.
Yes.
Item number 15, consideration and possible action to approve a line of credit with the Regent Bank.
Hello again. So this is financial insurance in a way. We probably will not need it, but if we have another crazy surge with the pandemic, and let's say we end up with 70, 80,000 kids across the two districts, the midterm adjustment doesn't come until January. So if our FQSR in November is 70,000, 80,000, and we've hired 500 more teachers and 20 more principals or whatever it would take to make that happen, we would have to borrow money to pay payroll. And that happened last year. So I think that there's a very low chance of that happening based on our prior year FQSR and our current funding status. Plus we have the ESSER funds available to us they're going to help with a lot of expenses like internet coverage and things that we're working through that we'll report on later. But it is easier to renew a line of credit now than it would be to go to the bank on November 4th and say we need money in December.
Organization this size has to have a line of credit, so thank you
Yes.
for having leadership to do this. What's the amount?
It's $15 million, and it is for Community Strategies, Inc., so it is not specified how much would be allowed to be borrowed from each district. It's up to $15 million for the 501c3 as a whole.
Okay.
Since both districts have payroll now, it is possible that both districts would need to make draws in order to cover payroll if the situation occurred. Last year, payroll was only in the one-on-one district, so the one-on-one district had the line of credit.
What's the interest?
It is 4.25 floor, it's 1% over, it's in the paper, it's 1% over prime, 4.25 floor.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to interject for the benefit of the board as a whole. That working with Janice's team, that the decision has been made, again, to ensure transparency so that you're fully aware. If at some point in time the school, either one of the school districts needed to pull down funds off of the line of credit, that would be brought back to the board to actually approve.
Yes.
$1 million, $2 million. So approving this doesn't approve Janice and her team to go full 15 million down. but to have it in place just in case, but we'll come back to you to approve it.
And that is memorialized in the memo that is in the packet for this meeting, so that you have that in the historical records that we're required to make sure we'll bring that to you for any draw. There is a fee for the line of credit, but it's minimal. I think it's $75,000, so that'll be borne by the organization as a whole between the two districts. But that's normal, and it's actually very, very low. It started out about 4 times that, and we argued it down a little.
Nice work. I'll take it.
It's like 0.5%.
Yeah.
So.
What's the collateral?
It's listed in the agreement, but the collateral is that we're funded by the state government, and so any monies coming in, if we were to default, any monies coming in, they would have the ability to claim on that. Typically, these are borrowed in November, December, and paid back in January, and it ends on June 30th. So this doesn't cross the fiscal year. You're not obligating anything in the future. So the only draws that can be made on this would have to be repaid in full by June 30th.
Let's see, the advance rate, was it 65% or?
I don't remember, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Great work. Now, a motion to approve the line of credit.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Jan?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran DeMeco.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Rowan Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Catherine Stina. I approve. John Tate.
Yes.
All right, last but not least, presentation and consideration on action to approve Epic Charter School Return to Learn Plan. Shauna?
Good morning. When I went into HR about 15 years ago, if you would have told me that I would be paying attention to science and medicine and dealing with a pandemic, I would have never believed it, as I'm sure most in their respective fields feel that same way. I have had the daunting task, but also the privilege of walking our staff and school through this pandemic, attempting to serve the students and faculty all over the state with very differing views regarding this topic. So I am presenting this plan today as a plan that is based on advice of health officials, and that is how we have based our plan throughout this. We have worked very diligently to stay on top of those changes, which can be quite frequent. We monitor the state health department map on a regular basis, and we also report our cases and our close contacts to the State Department of Education through their portal as required, which then partners with the health departments for contact tracing. So we are working diligently to assist during this time, and as I said, I do want to commend our staff, our faculty, and our families as they have worked through this and continued to educate kids and provide services for those families during a very difficult time for themselves personally as well. And we did conduct a survey of our staff in between school years regarding how we handled the pandemic and how they felt about their safety and how it was handled by EPIC. And we had overwhelmingly positive responses, which made my heart happy. And obviously never 100% happy, but lots of positive comments from them. And we know, again, I'll say that, they're very passionate opinions on this topic, and we are just going to continue to follow what the health officials to say that we should do. So, I'm not very good with these, so that's not mine. Okay. I'm like, you do not want me talking about encumbrances. Okay, here we go. Getting to the right page here too. So, this is our Return to Learn plan, which is required by the state of Oklahoma. Our plan is both districts in one plan, partially just for ease of parents, for understanding and where they can find information. All of this will apply to both districts except for the part specifically about the Blended Learning Center. So we will skip the Blended Learning Center information in this meeting, and we'll discuss that in the next meeting. This plan will be effective September 1st. Our phase 4 plan, which has been on the website, ends August 31st. So this starts September 1st. And as always, subject to change based on health guidance. Vaccinations. We are proud to have sponsored vaccination clinics in Oklahoma City and Tulsa in February and March. We are looking at offering another one now for those who were not vaccinated before, as well as now we can offer it to students who are eligible. We could not do that previously. And then when a booster is made available at a later time, we will also work with local health officials to have a pod scheduled here and in Tulsa as well. We recommend vaccinations, but we are not requiring vaccinations of any of our staff. And we have vaccination information and resources via links in our written plan that will be on our website. Wellness screenings. We are asking our parents and our staff to do wellness screenings at home, and that no one with a fever should enter any EPIC facility or have an in-person face-to-face meeting of any kind. Face coverings. Oklahoma Senate Bill 658 stated that no mask mandate could be made in a school without the state of emergency declaration. We are cooperating with that Senate bill. However, we are strongly recommending masks, especially for non-vaccinated individuals. Our cleaning and sanitizing protocols. I will point out that there has been significant research to say that regular cleaning of buildings is sufficient for killing the coronavirus and keeping employees safe, but we are going above and beyond that to try to mitigate risk. That you can see on here, the main offices and the Blended Learning Centers will be cleaned daily. We have day porters that walk around, and you'll see them if you're in our building, wiping things down and cleaning throughout the day, making sure we have hand soap and hand sanitizer throughout the building. And then the more thorough cleaning weekly on the weekends, and then deep cleaning monthly, which includes more sanitization. And then especially after we've had an employee or a student in an area and we've had a reported positive case, then we will do a deep cleaning and sanitizing at that time as well. Our microsites are cleaned weekly and they're deep cleaned quarterly, and our teachers will have the supplies that they need to disinfect the surfaces after each meeting, and they will have hand sanitizer available to them there as well.
Is every site covered then?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. And it says again that disinfectant spray and hand sanitizer will be provided in all buildings. We have stations throughout the buildings on the wall, you know, those where you put your hand under and it does it for you, so you aren't having to touch it, throughout our buildings too. Social distancing and hand washing, which I will say as an introvert, I was social distancing before it was cool, but now it's like all the rage, so I fit in really well. Social distancing will be observed whenever possible. Hand sanitizing stations located throughout each building, and routine hand washing and sanitizing will be encouraged and also modeled for our students. We know that that's important as well. Entry to buildings. Parents, guests, and visitors are welcome within our safety guidelines. All visitors, as always, sign in with our customer service representatives at the front of each building. Visitors must be escorted to an office by an EPIC employee, and masks are strongly encouraged for visitors entering our buildings. Hand sanitizing stations, again, located at the front desk and throughout each building. Symptomatic individuals who are symptomatic should not enter the building or conduct in-person meetings. And we ask our staff and our families to err on the side of caution with this. If you are even in doubt at all, just we have the capability, and let's do not in-person meetings for those. If an employee becomes symptomatic during the day, they must go home. And the CDC recommends COVID-19 testing for individuals who have symptoms of COVID-19, have had close contact, which is the definition there, and or if they've been referred to get testing by their doctor, obviously. Reporting requirements. All positive cases and close contact must be reported via our website. This is for students and families and staff. And we submit data, as I said earlier, via the Oklahoma State Department of Education portal as required by their guidelines. And the health departments have access to this data in the various areas for contact tracing. And we are asking our staff and families to cooperate with their efforts as they work to mitigate the spread of COVID. Notification protocol. When there's a positive case of COVID at a EPIC facility, we will let the people know who have been in close contact with someone. That does not mean if one person in 50 Penn Place tested positive that we're going to tell everyone and that they need to quarantine. It will be those that we have identified as coming in close contact. And also, we will not be releasing names due to HIPAA and just privacy concerns of our employees and families. So, we will notify them. And then if there's a positive case, it's the same thing for an in-person student-teacher meeting. If we find out after the fact, we notify them. And we are following guidance from the CDC and the Oklahoma State Department of Health regarding the notification, and we will comply with FERPA and HIPAA. Quarantine protocols. This graphic was taken directly from the State Oklahoma Health Department website, and it lists there if you have had exposure to COVID-19 and are not fully vaccinated, then you should quarantine and get tested between days 5 to 7, or if you develop symptoms, and then exposure to COVID and you're fully vaccinated. They're currently saying if it's been more than 14 days since you've been vaccinated, then you would not need to quarantine. We are telling our employees that have the ability to work in a more remote setting that err on the side of caution, and if they feel more comfortable going ahead and quarantining after a contact, that we will work with them to make sure that they feel safe. And then for people who test positive for COVID, this is not up here, but we are following the CDC guidelines regarding the number of days that they are to quarantine, and that is in the plan as well. COVID leave for employees. The Family First Coronavirus Response Act expired in December. So that extra leave that the government was giving due to the pandemic has expired. So currently there is no paid leave specifically for COVID. If our employees do qualify for FMLA and they are having complications from COVID and need to be out for a longer period of time, they can contact the benefits office and inquire about their eligibility to use FMLA. And that is in the employee handbook, that information as well. In-person events. Currently, we are planning to have our in-person events whenever possible. Again, this is a fluid situation and things change. We recently pivoted and changed our all teacher PLC to an online event, mainly due to the size of when you get all of our teachers together, how many, as well as the space and the inability to social distance. But when we can have meetings in person, we want to do so. The factors that will be considered will be the size of the group and the ability to social distance. And again, for those in-person events, because of Senate Bill 658, we cannot mandate the masks, but we strongly encourage them. We have some exemptions to mandatory in-person, which are up here. I won't read all of that, but it's having to do with people who can't be vaccinated or are expecting a baby. For those, just like last year, documentation will need to be submitted to HR, which will be confidential, but will be submitted to HR to substantiate those exceptions. Our child care policy is outlined in our offer letters and in the employee handbook. It's written here. but that working remotely is not a substitute for childcare, that childcare age children should have childcare during the workday. The exceptions for this will be made for kids who are in a mandatory virtual school setting based on they're normally going to a brick and mortar school. That school has changed to mandatory virtual, and then those children would not need childcare. Our one-on-one model, last year we had more virtual and less in person than ever before, and we really feel like our model, the success of our model is in person, one-on-one education. And so we are really wanting to get back to that, and I've heard Bart say back to the basics, but we want to be in person, building those relationships and improving our instructional outcomes. So we're returning to face-to-face instruction. Obviously, if things change and the health departments suggest otherwise, we will adjust that plan. Parents, because we are a school of choice, parents can make a formal request to the principal that they do not wish to meet in person. And again, masks are strongly encouraged but not required. And we are putting out there just a reminder to our staff and teachers that they should be meeting either virtually or in person. Regular education once every 2 weeks, and special education students every week. We'll skip that. And that is all that I have on that.
Any questions? You mentioned earlier slide talked about not entering a building with a temperature. How are you going to monitor that? Are you checking temperatures, or what's the protocol there?
We are not currently planning to check temperatures. We did last year, and it really took a lot of time and didn't really seem to screen many out. So we are asking people to self-screen at home before they come. And
what would trigger us to do that? Like if the CDC said recommended that, then
yeah, if they suggested that again strongly, we would do that. And we're not against doing that if that's what people feel like we need to do. But we really didn't have many last year that we would turn away because of temperature. It just people seemed to be taking care of that themselves. So
thank you. We have a motion to approve the Epic Charter School Return to Learn plan.
I make a motion.
Second.
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran Dominguez.
yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Alana Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Catherine Stina. John Tate.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. We have board member comments and then public comments is all we have left. So, board member comments? All right, I have a few. Shock you. Let me start with, one way to the end on purpose here, but Danny Williams resigned from the board. So Danny joined us in May and is resigning 100% for personal reasons. So he is disappointed. He didn't get a good chance to work with us and wishes us all the luck. So we do thank Danny for making the attempt for sure. Excellent work as always. I can see how much you guys put into this, and I'm excited about a lot of things that you're doing and how it's going to dovetail into what we're about to do in this retreat. So you guys never cease to amaze me personally on how much you just pick up and go and do. So it's really, really nice to have that for sure. The level of detail we have for the Return to Learn plan, we should have that for parents' return to school and students. We should be going through that kind of thought process on what's it going to be like for their parent to return in terms of technology, what they have to do to sign up, what they're not going to have. So just that point I was making earlier, I'm just putting a point on it for the Bart. So that would probably be my biggest worry right now, if you were, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, is that we get off to a really, really good start with our parents and students. So I have no doubt we will, but let's get that on paper. And then I do want to, and I'm so glad you pointed it out, like, we just had a chart up there with Learning Fund transparency. So, I mean, monumental day for the state of Oklahoma in many aspects with this retreat, but definitely with transparency on the Learning Fund. So I really appreciate that. And then the last thing I want to say is I've been spending a lot of time this summer really interacting with, I would say, key stakeholders within the community. And I'm personally starting to see a shift in how EPIC is viewed as a school. And feel like we're getting a lot more collaboration at the highest levels. And I know not all of you are feeling that right now with your day-to-day interactions, Janice, but you know, that's something that I'm going to work diligently on. So, you know, I feel really strongly that the future is bright with every single government organization in Oklahoma. So if you're not feeling that, I want to know it. Okay? So thank you. All right. Okay, any public comments? We're good?
There is one thing that I was thinking, because I saw this at a different school, but it might be a good idea, and it's to have like a video of the superintendent welcoming the families, and maybe not just a document, because sometimes parents don't have the time, or it's hard to read a lot of stuff, but it's easier if you just see it. You know, you're such a approachable person, and it makes it very warm for parents to see your face for sure. So you can explain all the like, as we were mentioning before, the whole timelines and everything that you were saying that sometimes parents don't understand. But if they see you explaining that, I'm pretty sure that would make it a lot easier for everybody. And also maybe doing a little, like making the return plan, talking about it, but maybe in a shorter version, or maybe with some visuals. Shelly can help with that, you know, to make it easier for parents to understand the whole plan.
Yes, ma'am. We'll do that. I love the video idea. Bart, with your face, like she said, warm face. We got the glasses removed too. We got the LASIK surgery. Okay. No public comments, correct? Okay. The motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Orlando Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Yes. Catherine Stina.
Yes.
John Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, the good news is we ended right on time. The bad news is we still have another board meeting left. Were you going to say something? Oh, okay. I bet everybody needs like a quick 5-minute break. So let's do that. But seriously, not one of these, we take 15 minutes, a legitimate 5 minutes. So 10:37, please be back here. Sean, right after this meeting, can you pull up the retreat agenda? Shelley should have that. After this board meeting, we'll just go straight into the retreat agenda, and then we'll take a break after we go through that agenda. We'll take another break real quick, depending on how well this one lasts. You can just pull up that email if you want. Wait, no, we have a retreat agenda, don't we? We have an official one.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
That's on
okay.
the website.
Yes, okay.
We'll just pull that.
I'm sorry.
I got a curiosity.
Okay, let's get started this time. All right. Yeah. How do we get a t-shirt? Okay. All right, that was 10 minutes. That's not bad.
Double your request. Hours.
Well, I was hoping we'd do it at 10. That's why I said 5. I'd rather let you on my tricks and this stuff. But here's what we'll do. We'll go through blended, like we always do. This should be anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes, longer. And then we'll go through the retreat agenda and we'll take another break and get situated. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Whatever you said, yes. Oh boy. Okay. Gina, call to order. Board of Education meeting for Epic Blended Charter School.
Paul Campbell.
Here.
Adelita Beltran Dominguez. Ginger Casper.
Present.
Waywana Montgomery.
Here.
Kathleen Stina.
Here.
John Tatum.
Here.
Superintendent update. Bart?
Yes, sir. So this is the superintendent update for our blended learning centers, including our blended learning charter. So here's our enrollment dashboard. Overall, right now, we're just under 24-1 in terms of our overall ratio. We broke out by DLC, blended learning center, the specific ratios for you all to be able to take a look at. You'll notice at the very bottom, Tulsa Mid-High is brand new this year. We didn't have a high school last year in the Tulsa area for our blended learning center, so we're very excited about that. What I can tell you is that the BLCs are full, and in fact, we actually have a waiting list of kiddos that are knocking on the front door wanting to get in. So excited about this year at the blended learning centers, but our blended learning charter total enrollment is 14,795. That was as of August the 13th, 2021. And you can see where we were last year at about this time, 21,395. So both charters have seen some attrition, both the one-on-one charter and the blended learning charter. But as I mentioned in the previous meeting, we are enrolling on average anywhere from 300 to 400 students per day. And that's been pretty consistent throughout the month of August. Wanted to let you all know, and Shauna actually made mention of this, that we had planned to do a face-to-face all-teacher PLC where we actually come together and have a day of professional development for our staff. Unfortunately, with infection rates on the rise, the number of just under 2,000 teachers, the number of teachers that we have, and the inability to socially distance, we made the decision to move to a Zoom. But you can see from the screenshot that we had a very, very active day, and it was really well organized by our instructional department, led by Justin and their crew. We actually broke teachers out into sub-Zooms based on their tribe. We call them tribes. So based on their principal, they were able to meet specifically with their teachers. So we had some whole group discussion, but then we were able to break out, even in Zooms, as though we would have, even if we were face-to-face, into meeting rooms specifically that were related to those teachers, their principal, the managing director of instruction, so that they were able to hear from their leadership. So that's one really innovative aspect of EPIC, is that we had the ability to seamlessly transition from face-to-face into a virtual environment or back to blended. And so we can operate really in all three domains pretty seamlessly. I would say probably more seamlessly than any of the other 500 public schools in Oklahoma. And so that bodes very well, regardless of what infection rates look like and color coding on state maps look like. We're going to be able to meet, we're going to be able to communicate, we're going to be able to goal set. And so anyway, we had a great PLC on August the 10th, and teachers are excited about coming back to school. I want to give you a BLC update. Training for the BLC teachers and teaching assistants. The topics range from building relationships to families to analyzing data to small group instruction. And you can see at the Tulsa Mid-High, one of the challenges we're running into is bureaucratic red tape with regards to permits and construction delays. So it's going to have a virtual start, but as soon as we get the construction completed, we're going to be able to have face-to-face instruction there at the Tulsa Mid BLC. Also mentioned Stonegate Learning Center hiring their first positions. Will be serving somewhere between 450 and 500 students respectively, and that's about the population is somewhere in that 400 to 500 kid range that we're going to be serving. And also you can see at our Midwest City Learning Center there at Traub, Ms. Nelson will be serving around 400 students grades 7 through 12. I think one of the things, before I move on to the next slide, that's like critically important that we're talking to our instructional department about with the professional development is don't race into trying to increase performance immediately. Step one in that sequence as an educator, educating a child is part art and part science. The improvement of performance is the science piece, that's the data piece, that's the remediation piece. Step one is the art piece, which is creating a connection with a family, creating a connection with that student, because that student is with us for a reason. They have to choose to come here. We're not their local brick and mortar school. And so step one is creating that connection with the student and then also with the parent. Because in our model, The parent is a partner in the process. We can't do our job if the parents won't engage with us. And so I think what a lot of educators and a lot of schools do is we rush into the work part, the science part, and we fail in the art of getting to know people. We are in the human being business. That's what we do. And so one of the things that Justin and our instructional department are really emphasizing to our educators right now, and I mentioned we've got almost 2,000 of them, is the importance of creating a connection. Because if you can get a child to buy in to what you're selling, children will move mountains. They will move mountains. They will go above and beyond. But they want to know, and it's a great quote, children will not care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so we're going to be reminding during the first 30 to 60 to 90 days all of our educators, all of our principals, all of our leadership about the importance of creating a connection and fostering a relationship with the families.
I think you just did one of your videos. That's one of them right there. I'm serious. For your staff. Yeah, I'm serious. I'm being dead serious. I think that should be a video right there. Right there. 100%.
Thank you. So anyway, we're excited about the start.
So that's an action that you took. Okay. I know that if you don't write it down.
You're right.
Sorry.
So we're excited about the back to school. We're excited about the new families that we have and being able to serve children, and we take them all. That's one thing that I'm very proud of, is that we take all children year round, and we don't turn kids away. So when they come to us, we meet them right where they're at. We had another successful blood drive that was really awesome. Our Epic Cares family. So thank you to everybody who showed up and donated blood. It was another successful day. Also wanted to let everybody know, 3,600 diplomas have been mailed to the class of 2021. And you can see many paper cuts. Yeah, a bunch.
There were several, actually.
Yeah, 3,800. So Deputy Superintendent Shelley Hickman and her outstanding team, the communications team, the community team, working diligently to get those diplomas mailed out before the start of the school year. So thank you to them for doing that. And Paul, that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. I was dreaming a little bit. I would love for us in the next 12 months to have a board meeting at a blended learning center, preferably in Tulsa. So it's 2 birds with 1 stone. We need to get out of here too. Get out to our students. You guys disagree? Yeah, no. I think I'm trying to make sure I get you guys' looks. Okay, good. Okay, Janice?
Paul, just on that point real quick, we'll be putting on the board agenda in the upcoming months, September or October, to discuss the 2022 calendar year board meetings. And so
that's what we can flesh it out.
We'll let everybody, we'll give you guys a heads up on that and bring your calendars, and then we could plot out those dates and plan one of those next year to be in Tulsa. That'd be great.
Hello again. Financial review for Epic Blended Learning Charter. Again, the second set of OCAS data was uploaded on July 31st. It is indeed 2 complete separate processes, 2 complete separate reviews, etc. And so that was done with no errors. And we actually already received our first review back from them, and we've replied to that already. So we're in really good shape there. First payroll was also done. This is his first historical payroll for Epic Blended Learning Charter, which is very exciting. The first teachers' retirement payments were paid, and the first taxes were paid, and all those things happened in the first week of August after the payroll at the end of July. And then the same thing on the scheduling as we discussed in the one-on-one meeting, and your comments are noted.
Well, at the break, I had 2 of my fellow board members tell me I need to let that go. And then I missed the point of how amazing of a job you guys have done. So I do want to let the record show that this is amazing work. We won't let Paul's neuroses get in the way of this, okay? So.
Well, but your request for us to get offline and find a place of compromise, if there are specific data points.
We will.
that you
I just
want,
wanted to
I will
know.
absolutely give them. Yeah, absolutely.
Just because I like push back on something, I just want everybody to know this. Just because I like suggest something, yeah. Well, you can jab me. You can say, Paul, no, like, God, why would you want to do that? I mean, I like having those conversations. I really do. I thrive off of them. I think high-performing organizations thrive off of them.
And we absolutely, as a team, want to give you what you need to manage things. We just want to do it to you correctly.
I know you do.
So here's the updated June 30th information for blended, which you'll also find in your packet, the same format, a balance sheet, an income statement, the pledge report for proof of collateral for our banks. And then blended came in at 71.09% of all expenses. Blended has real buildings. Blended has more expenses that are outside of that 1,000 level that one-on-one doesn't have. So that percentage, I'm very happy with it, all things considered. The cost was, again, we don't have a building fund. So all of the costs to run those facilities are coming right out of the general fund, and those are not considered instruction level costs. So they're not in the 1,000 code, which is the only piece that counts towards that 71.09%. So I'm very proud of our team for that. And we're aiming higher, of course, all the time, right? Update on the Learning Fund is exactly the same as it was for one-on-one. We are still awaiting information from our former CMO regarding the final balances and the return of unspent funds. The deadlines that we spoke of not the deadlines, the milestones that we have hit are the same for blended as they are for one-on-one in the Learning Fund. These numbers are different. 6 weeks purchase orders created for Learning Fund, 542. 9.3 million total purchase orders issued to date, and total payments issued from blended is $687,000. And there's a detailed listing of all the Learning Fund PS for blended in your packet. I think it's 7 or 8 pages long. It's very long. And it's like 4-point font if you need a magnifying glass. That's one on my desk. And then the orders processed to date, as I mentioned before, these numbers are for both districts combined, so this slide is exactly the same. Until we have the capability to split that data, I'll be reporting it as one complete set of data. ESSER funds, very similar for blended, except that we will also be looking at things we need to do for our buildings, like cleaning and all the supplies that are required for that. All of those expenses for COVID cleaning related things can go to ESSER. So we'll be looking at the budget for those and what enhancements we need to make per Shauna's plans, and all of those things will be worked on as a team with multiple deputies and assistant superintendents involved in the conversation. Any questions about the blended financial report?
Excellent.
Thank you.
We're going to talk at the retreat about the committees that the board's going to structure. So there'll be a financial committee, and with Linda and you and John, obviously, going to be on that committee. So I'm excited about what you guys will be able to do with all this new information.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is it ditto?
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Roger? Okay. Bill, is it ditto for you?
Ditto. Yes, sir. Ms. Paul.
Good. Thank you. Okay, consent docket.
The consent docket was inclusive of what was on the 101 agenda. I don't think there's anything new on the plate. It's a little less, actually.
Yeah. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda unless there's questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Go ahead.
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran-Dominguez.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Rwanda Montgomery.
Yes.
Catherine Steno.
Yes.
John Payne.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to purchasing and general business. Let the record show that Carrie will just the same presentation, and we are going to consider the nomination of Lynette Porter to the Epic Blended Learning Center, or Blended Charter Schools. We're going to get a motion to
Make a motion.
Second.
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran-Dominguez.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Rwanda Montgomery.
Yes.
Catherine Steno.
Yes.
John Payne.
Yes.
You get a free shirt. Do we get 2 shirts? Since we're on 2 boards. Welcome. Okay, item number 8, consideration and possible action to approve POs and encumbrance.
Good morning, everyone. Just want to share with you guys the incumbents that we have for the blended side of things. So we have issued just over 11 million in POs since the last board meeting, and that consists of 135 POs and 534,000 of that was for contracts approved in the last board meeting. And that consisted of 4 POs there as well. But the largest 2 project totals that we have was for the Learning Fund, which is 6.4 million. That's about 58% of the total amount that we spent. And that consists of 46 POs. And 3 of those 46 POs was the UPS, the Verizon, and the T-Mobile device that we have for student internet, same as we did for the one-on-one side of things as well. And also 30% of the amount was for the Rose State sponsorship fee that they'll be invoicing us for too as well. But the thing I'd just like to point out is that overall the Learning Fund, I know this says 58% now, but overall for the overall POs that we have issued, the Learning Fund is consisting of 35% of that. But the sponsor fee consisting of 13%, and the other big percentage of that is for federal programs. And right now we have encumbered about 4.4 million in federal programs, and that does include 2.1 million encumbered for ESSER funds that was mentioned previously. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you. Questions? Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran, yes.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Waiwana Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter.
Abstain.
Catherine Steno.
Yes.
John Taylor.
Yes.
This is the same. Okay. Consideration and possible action to approve Tulsa Tech Aerospace Academy program and MOU. Motion?
Motion approved.
Paul Campbell.
Did we have a second?
Second.
Catalina Beltran.
Yes.
Yes, Paul Campbell. Go ahead, Paul Campbell.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Waiwana Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Catherine Steno.
Yes.
And John Taylor.
Yes.
Leland number 10, 1, 2, 3, 4 land investments. LLC. Oh, I thought that was the address. 11911 North Pennsylvania Avenue.
It's near Penn and 102nd. It was our original BLC when we started that kind of process here. It is no longer a BLC. It is a one-on-one facility now, and therefore that's why it's on the amended agenda, because it's not for our one-on-one school. It's for our blended school, to keep everything separate. And so with the space that we're using here, that we were using for students on a daily basis, we're kind of limited on space, so we're going to be using Real Church for those kinds of functions. So we're asking for your approval that we can lease from Real Church.
What was that?
Testing. We also negotiated the testing program.
Yes, the same thing. We negotiate where the testing cost is rolled into this, so we're not going to have extra testing costs when we test in April and May, which will save us $10,000 to $15,000. So that's really cool. Thank you, Ryan. That's Ryan Gottschalk, by the way. He's in charge of our facilities and all those kinds of things.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve this lease?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Waiwana Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Catherine Steno.
Yes.
John Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 11, Leland.
Yes.
In Tulsa.
This is what we're calling the Logan Building, because that's the name of it up there. But it's our 50-pin place in Tulsa, basically. It's our headquarters in Tulsa. Our admin staff's going to be there. our Z space, I mean, our new boardroom that we're gonna have up there so we can have traveling board meetings. All that's gonna be, is designed in this, and so, because of the high school being developed where our admin used to be, we had to get a different space, and so this is the admin space, the kinds of things that we need for that. So I'm asking for your approval.
Can you get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Kelly DeBelgia and me, yes.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Rwanda Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Catherine Steno.
Yes.
John Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, Janice's line of credit is the same?
Yes.
Because it's for community strategies?
Community strategies.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the line of credit for community strategies?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran and me, yes.
Yes.
Ginger Casper. Yes. Rwanda Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Catherine Steno.
Yes.
John Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 13, Sean, is that the same because you've already presented?
It's the same, except there is London Learning Center specific information.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. There, right there. Oh, back one. Sorry. First of all, I would like to point out that last year our blended learning centers were in person, full-time, almost all year. There were a couple of weeks that we had to go completely virtual due to infection rate, especially with our staff. But I want to commend those employees because unlike the rest of us, they had less opportunity to be virtual due to the nature of their in-person job. So I want to commend them for that and their dedication. The parents are welcome within our safety guidelines into the blended learning centers. Calling ahead or making an appointment is appreciated, and they sign in at that building as well. Meals will be served in the cafeteria. We socially distance when possible. We leave time in between the lunch periods for more cleaning, and we will be having the hand sanitizing and hand washing stations throughout the school, as well as being modeled by our teachers, especially for those younger students. Students will have recess in cohort groups, and we feel like recess is necessary to the development of our students, and it also is a way to get out those wiggles and that stress that they get during the day from being in a building. So we definitely feel like this is important to continue, and it has been shown that the risk is much lower outdoors. We won't have water fountains, just like most of the schools that I've seen. They bring in their personal water bottle and they can fill it at the filling station, and so we ask them to send it with their name, and we'll be letting parents know that. In the hallways, we have signage for which entrances for people to use, arrows on the floor to show which way to walk on which side, and to help with social distancing, and hygiene reminder posters throughout the building. And supplies, they will all have their own technology, and they will not be sharing supplies when possible. There are some manipulatives that have to be used by multiple students, but they sanitize them in between use. And Blended Learning Center will meet in person unless it raises the infection rate raises to a level that makes it inadvisable, and we will comply with local health officials just like we are on the rest of our plan. That is it for the blended.
Thank you. Any questions for Shauna? Okay. Motion to approve FP Charter School Return to Learn Plan for blended learning.
Make the motion.
Yes.
Janet?
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Catalina Beltran.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Rwanda Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Catherine Steno.
Yes.
And John Taylor.
Yes.
Any board member comments?
Y'all can tell me this is not the appropriate space for the comment, but I was thinking about the Tulsa Tech opportunity And I thought I remembered, so I just pulled it up. I don't know if maybe there's not as much interest, but Metro Tech also has an aviation career campus. So I just wanted to throw that out. If we find that students on this side want a similar program, Metro Tech also has an aviation career campus. I think it's actually at the airport.
Excellent work. Yes, that was the appropriate time. 100%. Thank you. I mean, that really opens up a much broader conversation about we have the flexibility to take programs from one town and take it across this. I mean, who says we can't take what Tulsa Tech's doing, right? And just do that across the whole state. But definitely, let's look in the metro. I love that. Okay. Dan Williams has resigned from this board as well. So thank you, Danny. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Motion to adjourn? No, any public comments? Sorry. None? Yeah. And then motion to adjourn?
Second.
Paul Campbell.
Yes.
Madeline Beltran Dominguez.
Yes.
Ginger Casper.
Yes.
Roy Vaughn Montgomery.
Yes.
Renee Porter. Yes. Catherine Stena.
Yes.
John Tate.
Yes.
All right.